We're underway anyway. Go call the start, quick.
It's Craig Land then who is under threat from Todd Boucher, but Land is leading through the first corner with Boucher in second. For third, David Hitchin has got the better of Tom Parker. In fifth position is David Martin, and then the rest of the field make their way down towards the right-handed banked corner. And as you can see in the background, we can start to see Snowdon again. The rain has passed. We didn't have much of it as the leaders turn their way through Church Corner. Craig Land was hoping for rain. Instead, he's got Todd Boucher drawing up alongside him for the lead of the race. So it's side by side for the lead. We'll pick up on that now. And it's Boucher on the inside. Behind it's Hitchin and Parker. But there are the leaders. A big lock up for Boucher. He's got the car moving around on the braking zone, but Craig Land doesn't worry about that. He just drives around the outside and hangs on in the lead of the race. But the start of this race, Johnny, gives us a feel that we may have a race much more to the like of yesterday's rather than this morning's.
Yeah, we need to try and keep those two cars of Boucher and Land together, ideally, and the rest of the pack trying to stay with the two standouts in terms of lap speed so far this weekend anyway. Obviously conditions are different from yesterday, not so much from their earlier race in the Yokohama Low-Cost Championship. A chance to heat the tyres a bit more down Tom Price Straight, so weaving not only from Craig Land in the orange roll cage car but also second place man Todd Boucher. That gap is just starting to reveal itself though. Boucher to the rest, led at the moment by Tom Parker. Car running out wide is number 25 from the rear of the field, Tony Mole, just about able to recover that situation early on in his racing career, as you can see with the novice cross on the back of the car.
Across the line to complete one lap of what should be a 9-lapper for the low cost, and it is Craig Land that leads from Todd Boucher. Tom Parker's got third back away from David Hitchin, who made the better start. But that back gap between second and third starting to develop again. There is a good start for Ian Hardy, who's moving up the order. He's just got himself up ahead of Paul Clark. Jack Linus didn't make the best of starts. He's behind them. He'll be looking to move forward as he has done all weekend. And then the rest of the pack file their way through the super quick Church Corner before accelerating up towards the right-handed School and then into Rocket, the left-hander. And there's Paul Clark right on terms with Ian Hardy, and Clarkey can't quite find a way through, but behind Sean Brain would quite like a positional gain on Jack Linus, but Linus still has the inside for Rocket out, the right-handed element, so that means he keeps ahead of Sean Brain with Tortulla just behind there, the 19-year-old student from Oxford that brings up at the back of this battle.
Interested by the name Tor, and I always thought that's Icelandic by nature, so I presume either Tor originally or from heritage is from very north of the globe. But Tortulla, who confused us earlier on in the change of car, we think, in the black and white. Now, big lock-up as he goes for the lead from Todd Boucher, and he spun the car at the hairpin. That was a do-or-die manoeuvre, and he's so frustrated with himself. The beauty of these low costs is you can see right into the cockpit, into the body language of the drivers, and that might have worked for him. We've got a situation where the track is now bone dry, I think, but clearly there wasn't quite the grip there, and the tyres were crying enough. Craig Land gave him a wide berth because he could see what was going to happen. And unfortunately for both Todd and us watching, there's another spinner actually, speaking of which, is that Boucher again. Yes, it is, in a recovery mode. And another spin as a result of that is Rob Sisson on the main start-finish straight. That can happen so often, Josh. You spin at one corner, you're so frustrated, you then spin at the next corner, and Boucher will rejoin virtually stone last after all that.
I think we may have just seen the inexperience of Todd Boucher in his only seventh meeting. He has been first or second in the first four races of the season. In low cost, you do not need to win the race on lap 2. And he went for that big diving move. That was a last lap lunge, not a lap 2 manoeuvre. And then frustrated, makes another mistake one corner later. And Craig Land, who's been racing in low cost for 5 years now, he knew he didn't need to fight that, just or his competitor come past him and then spin in front of him. So now Craig Land has a 1.4 second margin over Tom Parker, who's there in second, the 23-year-old from West Yorkshire in his third season. And then David Hitchin in third place. There's Sean Brame, who is ninth, or at least he was at the start of the lap. Locost racing means that's probably not the case halfway round lap 3. The fastest lap, by the way, it's gone to David Hitchin, a 1 minute 49.6. That may be because, of course, Craig Land would have had adjusted his line, wouldn't he, at the hairpin when that moment happened. But David Hitchin going well in his first full season of low-cost racing. He ran in the Clio Championship in the past, which we'll see at Brands Hatch next weekend.
Yeah, Hitchin might have had some contact already, though, because I noticed that at least one mudguard was flapping somewhat. He's sitting there in third position behind the dark red 79 of Tom Parker, who got a good getaway earlier on in the second race of the weekend, but held today. The first of them was on Saturday. And Parker up the curb. Yeah, there's just a bit of mudguard flappery, I would say. There's no risk of really to detaching just yet for David Hitchin. Then the gap, back to the second of the Davids, Martin, in the gold-coloured number 4 car. And he has Jack Linus, who's been a star this weekend so far, heading up towards the right-hander at Church. I'm suddenly reminded by a request from James Winstanley that we've got to come up with drivers of the meeting, have we not? Is that across all categories?
I'm not sure that's...
Did you not get that email?
I think it's not quite drivers of the meeting.
It's other championships.
I'll speak to you off.
I don't have to worry about it in Locost.
No.
Good.
So,
well, Jack Linus wins it for me. Sorry, Jack, there's no award for you.
There might be an award. I don't think we're the one. Well, as far as I know, we're not the one to pick that one for this championship.
Fair enough. I'm giving myself too many responsibilities.
But other than
three
that,
abreast.
Other than that, I've missed it, and we're in trouble. It's 3 wide up, as you say, up towards a School Corner and up towards Rocket. So that's Boucher coming back through. So he's got past 37 and 27 there, I think. So that's Steve Brown and Mark Rue. Mark Rue, the 41-year-old from Leicestershire, is battling away there with Steve Brown, the 51-year-old from Devon. That's a distance, isn't it, to Anglesey, I would think. Well, probably a distance to most racetracks, to be fair, but particularly here to Anglesey. But for Steve Brown, he is new to racing, so hopefully he's enjoying his weekend here at Anglesey in the Alan Collier built low-cost. Son Tom Collier, a former champion in the category. So we're about half distance as Craig Land completes 4 laps of the race from Tom Parker. And then in third position is David Hitchin. Linus is 4th now, isn't he? So he's got past David Martin then. So he's continuing to impress in our potential unofficial driver of the meeting award for Jack Linus, a 27-year-old engineer from Essex. The ex-British University karting competitor in the ex-Gary Brandon car, who was a front runner and a regular in Locost for many, many seasons. So he's just ahead there with David Martin, who was a front runner last season. And then George Huller's having his best run of the weekend. He's up there in 6th spot, just ahead of Ian Hardy, Sean Brame and Paul Clark. And here comes Martin then. He's trying to get the place back away from Linus, but is Linus going to try and fight back? Not at this stage. Well, he might do. He's trying to draw alongside, but no, I think the inside line for the TSR car, the Team Sellers Racing car of David Martin. Is that going to keep him in 4th place here, Johnny?
It is so far, and I'm surprised actually at the momentum he was able to get from that middle lane through Rocket, Jack Linus. Tortuller's not quite close enough in order to benefit from that, but it was the wider approach through Rocket out, and Jack Linus much more confident, slowing the car, heading downhill through Siemens as well. I'm surprised the bollards on the inside of Siemens Corner have held firm throughout the course of the weekend so far. The temptation is always there to clean at least one of those out. David Martin again under massive pressure because there are now 2 cars on his tail, and a 2-pronged attack quite possibly from Jack Linus and the Tortulla car might mean that David can't fend both of them off. Meanwhile, the 27 car is under some pressure but also attacking at the same time. That's further down the order for Mark Rue, and he has Steve Brown and Rob Sisson, a recovering Rob Sisson for company in the number 6 car. Rob spinning as a result, I think, in reaction to the second rotation for Todd Boucher earlier.
Yeah, so we would expect Rob Sisson to perhaps gain positions as the race continues through these last 4 laps or so. But for the battle for 4th position, David Martin then, as we described, got past Jack Linus a lap ago, but perhaps we're going to see the opposite happen this time because Linus draws up alongside David Martin as they start to climb the run climb up the run towards the left-handed element of Rocket, but Martin defends. So that will give him the inside line, but Linus breaks as late as he dares, and the outside line is good enough for him to move around the outside of David Martin to take that 4th position. And then Tortalla joining in then, the student there in the 6th position car, another Team Sellers Racing prepared machine, last year's novice winner, 4 seasons of karting before he moved into the Locost Championship last season, as they turn their way through the left-hander there at Siemens, and then run down the Tom Price straight up towards hairpin once more. But in this little battle, Johnny, no toe is broken, which means we just see positional changes lap on lap.
Yeah, so there's always the scope, of course, for an increased bit of speed and a chance to overtake into the harder stop corners. So, and there are several of them around this longer version of the Anglesey track. Normally, the 750 Motor Club runs the coastal circuit via the corkscrew, just akin to Laguna Seca and the corkscrew there, but we're missing that bit of the track this time and heading all the way down to hairpin instead. A number of spectators had assembled there earlier in the day, I noticed. There's another moment there for possibly the 27 car again. It certainly wasn't Ian Hardy who's arriving at the banking now, so Mark Roux, I think, briefly off onto the grass there. Paul Clark applying the pressure to the rear of Sean Braham's car here, and those two exiting the banking as one. As Tom Parker again has a good lead over David Hitchin for 2nd and 3rd positions. Trevor Faunch benefiting from a bit of jumbling of the order further down, moving up to 14th place. But it's going to be side by side for the run through school now. The yellow and green car of Paul Clark to the inside and will get the place from Sean Braham up into 8th position.
Yeah, so Paul Clark is through. He made his Clio debut 2 weeks ago at Silverstone, but back in his more familiar Locost, the 38-year-old from Southampton who's been racing Locost for 6 seasons. And this Locost, which has had lots of help to Paul from the paddock to make sure this car's in racing order throughout those years of the Locost Championship, and he's been a front runner in that time. For the driver who's now in 8th position, Paul Clark, who turns his way up towards the hairpin. He finished 7th in the earlier race. He's currently running in 8th, ahead of Sean Braham, the 54-year-old retired IT manager from Suffolk, who's been racing for 15 years or so in this car that was formerly raced by Aaron Bailey, a regular front runner in the Burkitt Relay, which 750 Motor Club will be running again at the end of the year. Cars come through then to start their penultimate laps. They've done 7 laps. Craig Land leads by 6.6 seconds, who is just about keeping David Hitchin at arm's length. They're both being caught by Jack Linus, who is now less than, or around 2 seconds back, but lapping about a second faster. Maybe it'd be a little bit too late in the day for Jack to catch them, but he has a podium in sight at the moment as this battle for what is 8th position continues. And unlike in the Mazda 7s earlier, Johnny, the curb's very much being used again with full effect.
Yeah, and you need to do that tentatively, I think, just slightly using the curb here and there, and realise, yep, okay, there's full grip once again, but we haven't had a rain shower for a little while. Here to the inside again is the Braham car, Sean Braham with 2 wheels on the grass, actually. That does work for him, thankfully, on the inside of Paul Clark to return or redress those positions once more. That'll put Sean Braham up to 8th place. Paul Clark back down to 9th. Barry Stewart's a good 10 seconds or so back, so at least these two can jostle without threat of losing more places. Here comes Jack Linus then, and actually this is a defensive battle once again with David Martin. So Linus was certainly making an attack for the podium to secure the unofficial Johnny Palmer driver of the meeting, but I've reread that email and you're quite right, it said nothing like that. Linus not going to be on a podium as things go. In fact, he slipped back to 5th position now as Martin in the gold car gets back ahead.
Yes, I don't think he made a mistake, Linus, trying to go after the podium, and instead he's lost a place as Craig Land there starts his final lap. There's nobody else in sight. He's so far ahead of the rest. Oh, there's somebody. That's Tom Parker in 2nd place. Battles, though, further about these two drivers have had a great scrap all race long for what is now 18th position. Steve Brown is back ahead of Mark Roux. Mark Roux started a few years ago, he's out there in the ex-Ernie Gushlow car. Meanwhile, for fourth place, Gary Brandon's former car, now driven by Jack Linus, still trying to get back ahead of David Martin after losing that place on the previous lap. They turn their way up towards Church Corner, which for the final time this weekend for the low-cost competitors. And a good run out the corner for Linus. So he draws up alongside David Martin, and this is going to change again, Johnny.
Inside line at school should be just about enough. Yep, gets it all done under acceleration. They're still in the power here, and then all of a sudden all the body weight of the car will move forward and slow, although you can't really tell in these low costs. So stable they are under braking. And a little bit tail happy, Jack Linus, that time around, but he got good drive out of Rocket and towards Peel to stay in fourth position. But as these two cars were scrapping away, it's rather kissed goodbye to any chance of either David Martin or Jack Linus finishing on the podium, because the gap to David Hitchin has grown by about 3 seconds now. Here's Craig Land, clock is at 0, so for the final time, with a neat bit of corrective steering there, he heads at a hairpin with 1 corner to go, and just in time, because another lap might have seen him having to work his way through some back markers as well. Doesn't need to think about that. Approaching bus stop for the final time, Craig Land.
This feels much more like last year for Craig, and he celebrates with a drift across the line. So it's 2 today for Craig Land's victories, that is, for last year's champion. Tom Parker is second. David Hitchin very pleased with a third place finish, but problems on the final lap for the car that was running in 20th position. Andy Perkins has pulled off into retirement. A best result for Jack Linus. He's finishes fourth as he continues to improve. We'll watch his progress throughout the year. David Martin fifth, sixth for Tortola, seventh for Ian Hardy, then Sean Brame and Paul Clark have taken the checkered flag for 10th position. Barry Stewart's lost out on the last lap because Alan Harmon has moved his way up into the top 10, the 56-year-old magazine publisher from Brighton, who raced back in the 1980s in special saloons, and he's returned to racing recently in Craig Land's former car. Craig, the race winner in a newer car over the last couple of years. The rest of the field, though, flow their way up towards the checkered flag, and a shame to see Andy Perkins retire there, the driver from Leicestershire, because at that point everyone was still running, and we only had one retirement in the earlier race as well. So it's been a good weekend for Locost, where incidents have been limited and majority of drivers have been able to take the checkered flag in all 3 races. Yeah,
battle scars, but no more than that. And funnily enough, the straightest looking car is in the hands of Craig Land, who can afford a little wave to the assembled spectators around the circuit. It's been a good crowd so far this weekend at Anglesey, recognising a club race meeting that will supply superb, close but fair action. And there is the round of applause. You can again see the amount of gradient change here at Anglesey, because spectators up there viewing Peel Corner and the exit of Rocket out. Craig Land turning on the style again. 9 seconds in the end to the good of Tom Parker, but that'll be his, I think, best result of the weekend for Tom Parker. 2nd position in car 79.
Let's take a look at the results then of the 5th round of the Yokohama Low-Cost Championship, won by Craig Land, as Johnny said, by 9 seconds after 9 laps. Second was Tom Parker, and David Hitchin on the podium in third. Jack Linus, he had that race-long tussle with David Martin and came out on top. Tortola was 6th, I think a career best for him as well. Ian Hardy 7th, 8th for Sean Brame, Paul Clark, and Alan Harmon completing the top 10 with that change on the last lap. Barry Stewart was 11th. Todd Boucher, after a couple of spins, fought back to 12th, ahead of Glyn Griffith, who started from the back, and Alistair Parker was 14th. Keith Malpas ahead of Trevor Faunch in 15th and 16th positions respectively. Rob Sisson did pass Steve Brown and Mark Roux before the end. Tony Mole and Nick Tuller completed the finishes, with Andy Perkins retiring on that last lap. Despite that red flag in the earlier Mazda 7 race, we are at lunch ahead of schedule. Such is the efficiency of the people you see there in race control here at Anglesey Circuit, and everybody around the circuit, the marshals and such like. We've got 3 races to come after lunch, which will come up in about an hour's time. Before that, though, Andy McEwen has found some more drivers to talk to.
Well, took him a while, but Craig Hitchin getting that first win of the season earlier on has now doubled up here at Anglesey, and that will really help his championship hopes. He's just receiving his winner's garland now, and we'll dive in for a chat with our double race winner now, Craig Land. There's a joke here about buses, I think, when one comes along, so does a second one. A perfect day.
Yeah, I guess it was close on the first 2 laps, so it's following me around. I could see him having the slipstream at the top, and then going into the hairpin, obviously is going down the inside. I know you can see locked up, going in a bit hot. I don't know if he was going to collect me on the way through, but I managed to obviously bring it back and get through safely. But yeah, I mean, I can't ask any more really. I just hope there's more races like that where it's close, potentially where we can both finish at the front as well. That'd be more laps and obviously be more competitive up front. But yeah, I had a great time, and hopefully more to come.
Goes to show, doesn't it, though, that it's a game of inches, motorsport. I mean, that moment you just described could so easily have ended your race completely, and yet here you are with another race win. Yeah,
I mean, talk about inches. Yesterday I had a very similar situation where I was following Todd into the same hairpin, and I locked both front wheels up, and I think I missed him probably by a scale of an inch, if not. In fact, I think my rubber marks actually touched his wheel guard. So, yeah, it could easily, both of us could have been off. Trying to work our way back through the pack, or even worse, rolling it back to the paddock. But yeah, we'll see how things go in the next round, and hopefully get some more luck and yeah, see how the championship goes.
Fantastic day for Craig Land. Well done on the 2 race victories. Right, Tom Parker right behind me this time. I'll just scoot around here. Tom, congrats, 2nd place this time around, 1 step better. A little bit of fortune there, but you need that sometimes in this game.
Yeah, that's motorsport. Sometimes Todd got a little bit too hot on the brakes, and yeah, couldn't be happier. 3 out of 3 for the podium. I don't think I've done that before, so
really?
Very, very happy. Yeah, on to Croft for hopefully one more step up and knock Craig off his perch.
I've got high hopes for you at Croft, though, because it's not a dissimilar circuit to Anglesey, quite tight, quite technical. Would you say that's the kind of track that suits you?
Yeah, I think so. Croft, I've been there before and I know it a little bit better. It's a home circuit, so hopefully we can come out of there with maybe the top spot.
Excellent. Best of luck for that one then. Tom Parker in 2nd place, and well, our 3rd place finisher, David Hitchin. David, I could hear you celebrating, I think, before you'd even left the circuit. That was fantastic. Well done on the podium, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it's a good race. Obviously, Todd had his incident, and after that, it's just trying to hold on with Tom and let him tow me around and keep out of these guys that way who are coming fast. So yeah, very pleased.
You made that sound a lot easier than it was. I mean, you were really involved in one of those proper low-cost battles, weren't you?
Yeah, it was for a good bit, and then yeah, it kind of just tailed off towards the end. And, yeah, it was just keeping up with Tom, and I thought I could perhaps catch him, then I'd make a mistake, then it's just as it is. But yeah, really pleased. 2 podiums now. So yeah.
And they're not easy to get. This is such a competitive championship. It means that this really means a lot. I can tell it does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it is difficult because obviously this season it feels like we're like the second class, if you like. You've got Todd and Craig as mega quick, and then we're racing for the 3rd at times. And if you get caught back there, they're all good drivers and all fighting. So to break away and get on the podium is, yeah, a touch.